3, 2, 1. And we are live. Welcome back to another edition of Going the Distance. Live and in color. A couple of housekeeping things before we dive right on into, I think, a fun topic tonight. Of course, I think it's fun, or else I wouldn't be presenting it to you all. Where am I going to be? What am I going to be doing? I'm going to be in Rock Thrill, South Carolina, on Saturday at the Bob Jenkins or Coach Bob Jenkins Memorial 5K and the York County Cross Country Championships. Back at my alma mater at Northwestern High School. If you are in the Rock Hill, South Kakalaka area, we would love to see you come out and I've got a bad setup here tonight. We'd love to see you come out and run the 5K. The 5K, all of the proceeds, all of the proceeds from the 5K that morning will be going to the Worthy Boys and Girls Club. So we're actually, or not we, I say we. That 5K is actually the only 5K that they have that is a direct fundraiser for that group. So it's a great opportunity to help that club out. Yes, Carrie, I am a bully, or I keep saying whip. I am a bully, and I'm prepared to bully you until you get to that marathon finish line in New York City. I'll bully you all the way to the finish line. But I'll be out there. I'll be the honorary starter again. That went well last week. I think I learned from the best, a.k.a. Papa C. Hudge. Learned how to start a race from watching him doing it for all those years. You may have seen a flattering picture of me in my starter's fanny pack and with my pistol. I looked really intimidating, we'll say. Very intimidating. But I was in Greenville, South Carolina over the weekend at the Greenville Track Club Classic. Greenville Track Club Tiger Classic. There we go. I got it right this time. Hosted by Southside High School there in Greenville, South Carolina. It was really cool. Got to meet some cool new people. A lot, I've certainly been to Greenville. A lot of Greenville's a very, very big area. The running community there is huge. So it was fun getting to meet some new people. Got to hang out with a bunch of the kids. There was, I think, about 18 schools that were there. It was originally supposed to be a couple weekends ago, but that Hurricane Florence kind of just got in the way of everything. And then when they had to move it put it on the weekend of another really big meet, or actually two other really big meets that a lot of teams had already planned on going to. So they lost a few teams. They were really planning on being there, but that's life. So, but it was still a really, really great event. There was some really good races. I got to hang out with a bunch of the kids. Got to sign a bunch of bib numbers. You never know who you're going to meet at these events. And I got the opportunity to talk to a parent, or a set of parents, excuse me, a mother and a father, some parents. I got to talk to them about their kid. They have a son that's also suffering from an autoimmune disease and cancer at the same time. And he's a young kid. He's in his teens. So I got to share a little bit of my struggles and how I've kind of overcome some things. And I got to get them a book and everything. So, I hope that he can use those books, that book to kind of get through stuff. And you just never know who you're going to meet. You never know who, that's why I go to so many of these things. And, the idea is to reach out and hopefully encourage some people that might be in a really dark or bad place. So, Russell, what's up, man? Long time no see. Uh, but yeah, so I was, I got to have some really lovely interactions, and I got to watch some really good races. The boys' race came down to a sprint finish, which is always fun to watch. I love watching races. It's obviously why I'm even involved in the sport. I love watching races. And there was a girl named Emily who shared her name with my mother, that ran away from the girls race. So anytime you get to see a dominating performance, it's also pretty spectacular. So that was a lot of fun last week. Let's see, where else will I'll be? For you vasculitis patients that might be in the North Carolina, South Carolina kind of area, we do have a chapter meeting, kind of a little check-in. We've got I should have written this down. I believe we have a pulmonologist coming this time to chat with us. I'll also give an update on the VF and what they're doing, what we got going on, what we got planned coming up. Then I'm going to be back up in Philly in November, it looks like, for at Temple University. They're hosting a 2-mile tune-up race. I'll be hanging out with the old kiddos. And then things kind of taper off for the winter as we kind of buckle down and really get into some really hard training again as we kind of prepare. I did get that last Rituxan infusion 6 days ago. It's been sort of up and down. The actual infusion itself was, well, besides trying to get there, because I got it at a new location and there was a lot of construction and, anyways, so getting there was kind of a hassle, but I was frazzled when I got down in the chair, and I believe my nurses noticed that. So the actual infusion itself went really well, as good as it could have gone. I guess in some weird way, my body's kind of getting used to a bunch of toxic chemicals dumped in it every 6 months right now. So the actual infusion itself went pretty well. But you also get like a pretty big steroid hit. So, the day after is obviously normally pretty rough. You try to sleep a lot, and, normally you kind of perk up from there. It actually took me this time about 3 or 4 days before I actually really started feeling it. And I don't know if that's also because I was like on the go and didn't have time to really slow down. And I don't know if that also made it worse. But I crashed pretty hard earlier in the week. And really had my worst day post infusion yesterday. I just really I couldn't get going. I was struggling a lot. I felt like a car had run over me, both on my insides and my outsides. I had no energy. I had a terrible headache. I was, a little nauseous, and, you kind of have these, the first couple of days after, you get that big steroid bump, you have these crazy mood swings that you kind of can't control. So that's kind of certainly interesting to deal with. And especially as I've become more aware and kind of conscious of how those things affect me and how my body responds to them. Obviously the more you have something, the more you kind of, learn to handle it and deal with it and learn what's kind of coming, but you also never know kind of exactly when that stuff's going to hit you. So I've had these giant energy swings the last couple of days, and it's been entertaining to say the least. But we got back out. We got back out there. We were able to do an event at the running store last night. Skechers Performance brought by some sick shoes. I believe if my boy Whip would have come by, we might have tried to hook you up with a pair. You know what I'm saying? But you never showed up. So I'm just gonna keep bullying you. But yeah, it was a great event, small event here at the local Fleet Feet, and some people got to try on some shoes that I'm certainly partial to and currently loyal to. But I do think they have some really fantastic shoes. I just also understand a lot of people don't normally associate Skechers with running. But I think we might have changed a couple people's minds last night. And told a few hot dog jokes as well. Yeah, I want a big shout out to Jared and Curtis who actually got me to go for a run with them. I'm currently on break, so I'm not really running much right now. It's important to let the body rest at the end of every season and kind of reset. You've done a lot of damage to it, and both mentally and physically. And it's important to kind of hit that reset switch. But we're kind of getting to that point where we're about a week and a half past, and I'm starting to kind of get a little, eager to start training again. But I got out there and suffered through a couple of miles. It was a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. And it, it could have been worse, but it's so funny going from like literally the last step I took was a race because I didn't even cool down after the race. The last step I took was a race, and then all of a sudden now I got a week later you get back chemicals, and all of a sudden you're in vastly worse shape than you were a week ago. So it's kind of I'm going to choose to say comical. Because if I think about too much, it'll probably get me down. But we got through it, and I want to thank Jared for big shout out to Jared. Whip, that could have been you. But we got through it, got her done, and we're going to slowly start adding some mileage back in here next week, and just getting back out the door. But I guess another thing in Brandon world, and I guess this hasn't really been technically announced yet, but I will make the announcement to the world here. I've now joined High Point University, which is the local Division I school here in our town. They're in the Big South Conference, which was a conference I competed in when I was at Winthrop University. But I've joined their staff as a volunteer, so I'm going to be going to practice some here and there to kind of help the team out. They've kind of hit a rough patch with some stuff, and the coaches looking to bring in some fresh outside ideas, and they have enlisted me for that help. So actually this week I've had the opportunity to go out to practice twice already and see stuff and witness stuff, and I'm using, I guess, that announcement to kind of segue into something that I think is important when you enter into any new situation, or if you're looking, I don't know, most of us have to interact with people at some point in time either in our jobs or at home, or in tough situations with our families or our friends. And because I've kind of, I'm just kind of there to observe right now. And make some suggestions here, there, and talk to the kids. It's not my place to kind of come in and like kick the door in and be like, "Go run, boys," and like just start whipping people and poking them with cattle prods. So you kind of come in and get your lay of the landscape and take look at the energy. And the interactions that everybody has, and everybody's kind of attitude and stuff, and kind of figure out where you're going to fit into the puzzle. And it's something I've spent a lot of the last 3 days kind of figuring out. It's like, all right, so like how can I best help this situation, because that's what I'm here for. And that's I think whether you're approaching a new job or approaching a new coaching situation, or a new goal, when there's any time that what you're trying to accomplish has to do with how you can effectively communicate with people. I think it's really important to pay attention to those energies, because what you give off is oftentimes what you're going to get back in return. And it's funny because I never thought that like in a situation I would be the guy that would have to kind of come in and be the low energy guy, but with the coaches there, he's already a pretty high energy person. So I think I kind of figured out a little bit towards the end of practice today. Like, I think it's going to be good for me to be kind of the low energy person, right? Because you got to balance people out. There's got to be a yin and a yang, I guess you would say. So I don't think it's good to certainly bring too many of or too much of one side and not provide the other. So, um, because ultimately, like in this situation, it's about how do we motivate these athletes to buy into the process, to buy in what they're trying to do, to buy into the team and what everybody's trying to accomplish. Um, so, um, and that's I mean that's not just like that's what every team's about, right? Not just I don't want to sound like they're not doing that because that's wrong. It's just that's what you are like. That's what you are as a coach, and when you offer your services to a team, a high school, a middle school, a college, a club, a professional organization, whatever it is the idea is to get people to join in for the betterment of the bigger good when you're part of a team. And it's been really interesting because I've really spent a lot of time just kind of observing things and observing interactions and the energy that you really give off is oftentimes I don't think we're oftentimes aware of our own things, especially when you've been doing something for a long time or been somewhere for a long time. Um, we certainly have our habits and the things that we can fall into really easily, and especially if you've been somewhere and you've been frustrated for a long time. Because I know I've certainly been that way at some jobs or at some places in life where your fuse just gets really really short, and somebody new can come in and say something or add something, and it just kind of like cause you to blow a gasket. And I think I've said it on here before. I think we all like anytime there's a quick like knee jerk response to something, like I think that's a really good time to like turn like and the coach said this Coach Esposito High Point he said this the other day. He's like, oftentimes when you want to point a finger, you really need to be pointing your thumb back at yourself, because oftentimes you've been part of why that situation went bad or wrong or whatever. So it's a thought I've had a lot recently, and as somebody that spends a lot of time coaching athletes and working with people, um, no matter what your profession is, I think you have to find the right energy for a person. So even if you're like working in retail, selling shoes, selling clothes, selling perfume, whatever it is, you've you every new customer that comes in the door, kind of needs something different. Um, that's not saying that you can't still be you, and can't, you know, shine and smile. And if you're more of a high nature person or a high energy person, you can't bring some of that the equation. But like to really be effective and to communicate ideas properly, you kind of have to figure out what that other person's needs. It's kind of like that help you help me kind of thing. It's like, what do you need so for me to give you so that you can succeed in this situation? And that's what all sports and coaches are. And I've certainly been on a lot of teams over the years. I mean, not just running teams, but like church league basketball teams, rec soccer. I guess you can count me playing t-ball and stuff as being a part of a team. But what the idea behind all of it is, like, I've had some good coaches, I've had some some mediocre coaches, and I've had some excellent coaches, and I've had some bad coaches. And all, like, I think all coaching and teaching is the same way too, because coaching is really teaching. And all of the best teachers that I've had and the best coaches I've had were effective communicators. I remember it in undergrad. My favorite professor, who was it? He would, believe it or not, it's probably the most, on paper, the most boring subject of all time, which is American history, that you've had 37 times in school growing up, even though most of us don't remember crap from it. He was Dr. Silverman was an amazingly effective communicator and a great storyteller. he had that way of telling you something, even though you can't count how many times you've heard about the Revolutionary War and how it started, or the Civil War and how it started and what it was over. Um, he was great at communicating those ideas in a fresh new way that made it so you didn't want to slam your face into the desk and pass out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's what I say. It's not just on the playing field or on the track, or there's tons of like we all have to be more effective communicators, right? We all have to be able to communicate how we feel to your spouse, to your boyfriend, to your girlfriend, to your parents, to your friends. And if you can't effectively get your points across, then oftentimes you're misunderstood. And I think to go way back, that's one of the reasons why I've sort of embraced social media over the last 3 or 4 years, because believe it or not, I think there was a narrative out there kind of about myself that I felt a bit misunderstood. Maybe I'm just crazy and self-absorbed, which is probably true. But I felt like that there was a narrative out there about me that people didn't quite understand, and I was slightly misunderstood. So, I really embraced that to kind of try to communicate better, like who I really was and what I had really gone through and what I was trying to do. And I think a few years into that, we're here where we can sit down every week and chat for an hour or more about some of these things, and hash out these ideas. And I'm certainly not the best at it, but I like to think I'm getting a little bit better. This podcast is certainly better than the first one. The first one was super awkward, and hopefully everyone gets a little bit better as we all learn and bounce ideas off each other. And I just get better at talking. It comes pretty naturally to me. So, but I've gotten certainly a lot more comfortable with it. But yeah, so it's something that I've noticed a lot, and I hear other coaches talk about it all the time. How can we get these kids not necessarily more excited, but like, how can you get the point across that you're trying to portray, right? Like that you're trying to get them to buy into. So like you just have to constantly keep working on it. And I think so often we want to like cram square pegs into round holes. I think is the old saying they say. Is the old saying, is like just you want to kind of force kids and browbeat them. And I'm not saying that yelling doesn't need to happen. I'm certainly not one of those people. I certainly have yelled plenty in my day at people. In fact, I believe I sent an all caps email to an athlete today because of, and that's my version of yelling through email. Stop running too hard. You're going to get hurt. Sometimes it's necessary. But certainly in my later life, I kind of prescribed to the Phil Knight philosophy. If you're not aware who Phil Knight is, he coached this guy named Michael Jordan and this guy named Kobe Bryant. I think between those two teams, you're looking at 11 NBA championships, plus he got 1 or 2 as a player. So he's involved in 13 NBA championships as a player and as coach. So he's pretty successful, but he kind of was the opposite of the old Bob Knight, who was obviously infamous for his sideline antics, to the point to where he once hurled a chair onto the floor during the middle of a basketball game because he didn't agree with something that was going on the floor. But Phil Knight, who they call the Zen Master, who ideally we would all love to be like that. Now some of us can and can't be, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn things from those people, right? Like I certainly don't think I could prescribe to his philosophy 365 days a year, but there's certainly things that I've garnered from reading some of his books and some of the things that he's written over the years about how he handled those teams. And you got to remember, he handled 2 of the probably most egotistical athletes outside of maybe Tiger Woods and Lance Armstrong. He and dealing with Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, he had to figure out how to get those egos to buy into a system that was his. Um, and he did that. So I think there's certainly some valuable lessons to be learned from that. But his thing was kind of like, once a year he would kick over a rack of balls at practice, and that way it was much more effective. If he kicked over racks of balls every day or every other day at practice, it certainly loses its meaning, because then it just kind of turns into like, oh, here goes coach again, like flying off of the handle. But it loses its importance, and as a coach or somebody that is going to be a communicator, whether it's a teacher or whatever your job is, or passion is, your words need to carry weight, right? You don't need to waste your words. You don't need to just talk to hear yourself talk. You don't need to talk just to, um, you know, just to fill dead air. So you don't always necessarily be barking instructions. Sometimes that's, as I said, you got to find the balance, because certainly sometimes I deserve to be yelled at. I've been on teams that deserve to be yelled at, but it's uh, especially important, you know, to make that effective. I know my dad was certainly great at that at certain points. He definitely was good at, um, you know, saving those times to yell. I mean, he's already a loud person. He certainly yells a lot on a daily basis because he works in a gym. But yeah, he was great at kind of finding those moments to like just kind of like lay it down and lay it out there. And I think that's like one of the reasons why he's had a lot of successes. He found that, right. He found that healthy balance. So it's, I don't know. You got to find that balance. You got to find what works for you and your personality, and really also with the group of people that you're working with. And it just like the situation, because I do a lot of public speaking too, or I've kind of fell sideways into public speaking. People keep asking to hear more and more of this stuff for some crazy reason. Um, I'm still kind of confused about it sometimes. It's obviously I'm severely honored, or sincerely honored, severely. I'm severely honored. Yeah, I'm real good at talking. I'm real good at that reading too. Uh, but um, it's for me, I can have to juggle it a lot because I speak to a bunch of different groups. It's not like I'm uh, Tony Robbins standing up there and it's like, get off your butt and get out into the world and do something and make something of yourself. So like, I'm not just giving these just huge, like sweeping inspirational talks every time. One day I might be talking to a group of middle school or high school kids that are all runners. One day I might be talking to a group of adults that are all athletes. And by athletes, I mean, they are athletes in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 80s, hundreds. I said, I hope they're in their hundreds. I hope I can get a 100-year-old athlete one day. Random side note, I saw the 100 plus, the 90, I think it was the 90 plus or the 100 plus world record set in the 100 at Penn Relays. And I've never seen a stadium go so crazy. Our race, that was the mile race that I ran right after that, was certainly a letdown for everybody. After that, I think everybody went and was like, these guys are going to be running a couple laps. We're going to go get a soda. But oh yeah, so one weekend I might be talking and trying to give directions to a group of adults that are trying to learn something, and even if I'm teaching the same thing and going over the same even the same topics, you have to communicate those differently, because what's going to resonate with an older person is not going to resonate with a 14-year-old teenager with his nose in his phone. So you've got to be willing to do something that's more entertaining than whatever they can find on the internet. So you got to provide something um, to them that can keep their attention. So you got to find different ways, and it was really hard for me to find a rhythm early on when I was doing it because they were so all over the place. But I certainly think I'm becoming a little bit better at it. Uh, but Whip, are you trying to punch down now too? I see you punching down at Russell. Um, it's like, Whip, are you now bullying somebody else because you're getting bullied? That's cute. um, Good old smack talking. It's also effective way to communicate is smack talking. I think we saw that, although it got certainly I think out of hand in that fight this weekend. If anybody on here is a UFC fan, oh my, Conor McGregor, perfect example of an effective communicator. Muhammad Ali might still have the title for best smack talker of all time. Conor, I believe, is certainly trying to take that from him. I think Conor has the ability in 2018 to be a little bit more creative with it, because I don't think, especially during the times that Ali came through and what he was also representing for his community and trying to accomplish, I certainly don't think that he could be quite as vulgar and funny and creative with some of his smack talking. But which is why I think ultimately Ali will kind of always hold that title, because he was able to smack talk and also be a cultural icon. I mean, he was certainly. I mean, I think a lot of people, and I know I'm really getting kind of off topic right now, but I think a lot of people forget how much he. And I wasn't alive, so I can't say this, but I've read a lot about it, certainly. How much he was hated, because he was a draft dodger, and on top of that, he came in an era before smack talking was quite as accepted as it is now. But he was phenomenal at it, and Conor is I think in some regards probably a notch above it. Time will tell whether or not he can become a true legend that transcends sport. He's certainly trying. I mean, he went toe to toe with Mayweather and trash talking, and Mayweather was also pretty good at it. And I think he certainly came out on the other side much better. But once again, an effective communicator who's using his words to get a point across. And like I said, sometimes yelling or talking smack is necessary, because what he's trying to do is basically rile up and psych out to his opponent. So where they're using mental energy, because that's part, and it's part of his personality that he's embraced. And from what I understand about Conor, is he's been that way since he was probably 14 years old. He was that guy. So he embraced that, and he was good at it. It's not a stretch for him to get there. Like, I'm not that great at trash talking. I can kind of do it with my friends because I know them, but I can't, can't come up with stuff on the spot. I'm not that creative. I'm not that good with the words. But seeing somebody like that be able to rile up and really get in the head of an opponent, because that's what the trash talking certainly is for when you're facing an opponent, and is to kind of plant that seed of doubt in their head, or get them overly emotional, especially in a fight where you need to be kind of calm and collected and not let things get you riled up. He certainly has gotten into the heads of some of his opponents, and it has played to his advantage. Now, certainly, I think you even saw after the Khabib fight, what he was able to do with his words escalated that whole situation. So that after the fight apparently wasn't even over anymore, or the fight wasn't over yet. So with people flying out of the cage, people coming into the cage, and sheer mayhem breaking loose. But all of that was literally because of the way that Conor communicates, the way that he talks, the way that he speaks, the way he carries himself. He brings an energy into a room. He brings an energy into the ring. He brings an energy to a fight that is effective. It is absolutely effective. So it's all about finding, like I said, right balance. Just because, I'm, I feel like even right now too in our nerfed up world, people have been kind of talking crap about um, coaches that yell all the time, or coaches that you know, or people that yell too much, or people that, or kids are too soft, or whatever. So like the reality is like, you know, we found out that those don't work all the time. The old idea of a coach like Bob Knight kind of coming through the system now, just for whatever reason, kids and people are not responding to that at the same rate that they were in the past. And so the question then becomes, how do we change? How do we adapt? Right. So how do, if your goal is to continue to help people or have a job or do whatever it is, how do you continue to effectively communicate? And I think taking a step back is the first step to that. You have to be able to take a step back from yourself and and look at how you might have contributed to a situation that was good or a situation that was bad. What about the way that you acted and responded helped you get the outcome that you wanted? If you got the outcome you wanted, it's certainly um, something that you need to embrace and look at on how to get more out of that and do it more often. If it's a situation that you failed at, it's like, all right, I didn't communicate really well here. What do I need to do? And a lot of that is self reflection and introspection, and it might even be sitting down with the person or the people that you're talking to. It's like, all right, what do I do as a coach or whatever? What do I need to do to help motivate y'all? Um, so it's something I think we just don't pay enough attention to, because I mean we've all been guilty of. Because every interaction that we have with people is not just that interaction. It's all the interactions that you've had in life prior to that interaction, leading up to that moment. So there can be certainly a lot of baggage behind your interaction, and it could have just been you getting an offender bender before you got there, or maybe you got a speeding ticket, and then so you're already or you found out that like a deal that you were trying to close went bad, or your girlfriend broke up with you, or an event gets canceled or whatever, and then your next interaction, right, whoever you're interacting with, and it might be somebody else at your job, it might be something else that's really important. So you've got to take those time and those spaces, and that's where things like the mindfulness that I've talked about on here so much can help in those situations where you kind of breathe and let yourself reset, so that you can be the best you, right? Because that's what ultimately you're trying to do with this, is you're trying to be the best you that you can be for that situation. So um, you can let me know what you guys think. I could just be full of crap. I've been told that before. So, but it's something I've devoted a lot of energy to. And when you come in, and it's not just this new kind of coaching situation that I've um, stepped into, but it's also just at a lot of other situations I've looked in life, and even in how you communicate with your partner, right? And how you know those can be good and bad interactions, and um, we all know that we carry things from past, potentially past relationships, or past uh, moments in that relationship where things might have gone wrong, and when something goes wrong again, you're kind of ready to tee off. And I've certainly teed off on a lot of people over the years, some of them being my own family members or loved ones, and I do apologize. I take complete ownership of it, but I wasn't aware enough to not, you let the emotions get the best of you, you let the situation get the best of you, and you have to learn and grow and move on from there. Even though I know now that Einstein didn't actually say this, the quote still stands. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But that applies to for all of your interactions that you have with people out there in the world. Um, so, if anybody's got any questions about how I do that, or any comments, I'm happy to entertain them. Um, or anybody wants an update, I guess I can, several of you or many of you weren't around early on. So, I can update everybody on this. I will, I guess I've got 3 media things coming up if anybody wants to keep their eyes open or peeled. If you haven't had enough Be Hudge Nasty in your life recently, you're going to have the opportunity to have just a little bit more of me. I recorded a podcast last week with a guy out in Hawaii, which is way in the middle of the ocean. Actually, I looked at it on a globe recently. It was just like a globe randomly at a store I was in. And you look at Hawaii and you're like, really? America? That's ours? I'm not saying that it can't be ours. And I'm not saying, I mean, it's just way out there. Really, really, really way out there. And it wasn't something I paid much attention to. I mean, I knew it was out there, but it had been a while since I really looked at it. But it is out there. It is really, really, really out there. It's also a place I'd like to go. But after having done that podcast, and then you stumble upon a globe and you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, there's where Hawaii. What? So yeah, it's way out there. So I record a podcast with him. Hopefully it'll be coming out. He does have to edit it a little bit because I think I got a little wordy and a little talky there for a while. Alaska is also really, really far up there. It's above Canada, where my boy Trevor Beasley is actually from. And I do remember this stat. It's about as big as half of the United States in landmass. I think that's right. I think I might have just made that up also. Because as I've proven time and time again, my memory is failing me very, very, very quickly. But it's pretty big and it's way up there too. It's just like, hey, like we're gonna buy that up there. I know it's not really near us, but yeah, that's ours. Hopefully we don't buy Canada and Mexico too. But yeah, so I'll whenever that podcast comes out, I'll be letting everybody know. Andre did a fantastic job of asking some really good questions, and really made me think about a few things that I haven't done. I always enjoy when I can have a conversation, especially on a podcast. When the host, or even if it's in an interview with a regular media person, when they force me to look at something new, think of something new, think of something from a different angle, or ask me a tough question, something that's really gonna make me think and respond honestly. Because I'm not gonna lie, I get kind of tired of answering some of the same old questions of like, well, so why do you run? How far do you run? Do you run marathons? Why do you still run? So you kind of gets asked some of the same questions, even just on a daily basis. Not even being somebody that it's just like random people at the gym will ask you questions like that. But then I'm also going to get the opportunity to be on WSOC TV, which is News Channel 9 in Charlotte. I'm meeting with them on Friday. I believe that spot they said will run on Sunday. I have no clue what it's going to be, but they're interested in sharing our victory over vasculitis story that we're all about, and all of you are part of as well. You are all part of the story. I try to lift. I can't obviously mention every one of you by name because I would just take up the whole interview. Maybe I should just start doing that when they start asking questions. I should just start listing off names. But no, you certainly all are part of this, part of the story, and part of this conversation that we're having. So you all get shout outs, and hopefully all of these. So I think that's all we got for this week, guys. I'll be back in Rock Thrill, South Carolina on Saturday. If you're around, we'd love to see you out at the Bob Jenkins Memorial 5K. That 5K goes to sponsor the Worthy Boys and Girls Club. Not sponsor, the funds from that go to the Worthy Boys and Girls Club there in Rock Hill. It's the only fundraiser that they have currently, so it's a really big deal. If you could get out there and just jog a couple of miles for a coach that meant a lot to a lot of people in the Rock Hill area as well as across the state. Coach Jenkins is in the USATF Hall of Fame for a reason. He was an important person in track and field down there. So we'd love to see you out there on Saturday. So that's where I'll be. You know, hopefully, for those of you locally, I'll see you all around. See you all around, and if not, I'll see the rest of all you beautiful, crazy people next week at 8 o'clock. Till then, guys, don't be afraid to go out into the world and learn something that might just change your mind. Till next week, guys. Love you.